What's going on, everybody? Psych Perspectives, GeoFux here. And of course, I'm coming to you to bring some more information. This is actually a positive in some cases, but depending on how you view this person, you may not see it as a positive. You may see it as performative, but I'm still going to bring it to you. So we're talking about Senator Cory Booker's 25-hour filibuster on the Senate floor. Um, so I do want to talk about that because I mean it is a monumental historical act. Um, so let's talk about it. So first things first, I want to give a running definition of what a filibuster is, because again, some people may not know what it is. So I'm gonna, kind of break it down. Break it down. Break it down. So, a filibuster is a tactic used in the United States Senate to delay or block a vote on a measure by preventing debate on it from ending. The Senate's rules place few restrictions on debate. In general, if no other senator is speaking, a senator who seeks recognition is entitled to speak for as long as they wish. Only when debate concludes, whether naturally or using cloture, can the measure be put to vote. And to discuss what a cloture, or informally, a guillotine, is a motion or process in a parliamentary procedure aimed at bringing a debate to a quick end. The closure procedure originated in the French National Assembly, from which the name is taken. Closure is French for the act of terminating something. It was introduced into the Parliament of the United Kingdom by William Ewart Gladstone to overcome the obstructionism of the Irish Parliamentary Party, and was made a permanent in 1887. It was subsequently adopted by the United States Senate and other legislatures. So just wanted to throw that out there, right? So that's what a filibuster is, and that's what a cloture is, or closure, or informally a guillotine. We're putting an end to it. Now, I just want to talk about Senator Cory Booker breaking Strom Thurmond's record. I also want to highlight who Strom Thurmond is. Strom Thurmond was a former U.S. senator, who in 1957, prior to Senator Cory Booker, had the longest filibuster. So let's talk about Strom Thurmond, because I think it's really important that people are made aware of history, because especially with everything going on, if you don't know where you come from, you are bound to repeat the same problems and mistakes. I'm just going to keep it real. So, Strom Thurmond, not only was he a former U.S. Senator, but he was also the former governor of South Carolina. His name is actually James Strom Thurmond Sr., which at the time was just James Strom Thurmond. Okay. And his filibuster, again, he did a filibuster on the Civil Rights Act of 1957. And ironically enough, he was a Democratic United States Senator from South Carolina, and he did a filibuster intended to prevent the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1957. The filibuster is an extended speech designed to stall a legislation. So when you think about what Senator Cory Booker did for 25 hours, was an attempt to stall a legislation from being enacted and passed into law. Okay, so when you think about your Congress members, your Congress, which is your U.S. House of Representatives, they write up the legislation. If it passes through the House, it gets sent to the Senate, Your U.S. senators are the ones that vote on enacting it into law, and signing it into law and making it into an active legislation at the federal level. Um, and each state in the USA receives two senators, which, again, let's be honest. Well, I'm not gonna say let's be honest. When you look at how things are set up, in my opinion, um, it's mostly designed on slavery. Okay, because case in point, it in my opinion, it should be based on population, not everybody just getting two senators per state. Because, and I'm going to break it down. When you look at places like California, New York, what have you, um, they have way larger populations. So, in my opinion, they should have more representation than a place like Iowa or South Dakota, where you literally have more land than people. But of course, when Senate and everything was created, it was basically about the southern states that also were the slave holding states. And they realized, holy shit, there's more land than people, and there's more enslaved people than white folks who could vote. And in particular, white men who owned land who could vote at the time. All right. So, anyways, Strom Thurmond uh, had an extended speech that began at 8:54 p.m. and lasted until 9:12 p.m. the following day, which is a duration of 24 hours and 18 minutes. Um, and the filibuster focused primarily on asserting that the bill in question, which provided for expanded federal protection at the time for African American voting rights, was both unnecessary and unconstitutional, which was why, at the time, Senator Strom Thurmond had did the filibuster. Anyways, I just kind of want to give you, a historical background on it prior to getting into Senator Cory Booker's filibuster that was 25 hours. So, um, and again, the bill ended up passing 2 hours after the filibuster and was signed into law by President Dwight D. Eisenhower within 2 weeks of him doing the filibuster against the Civil Rights Act of 1957. So, back to Senator Cory Booker, breaking former Senator Strom Thurmond's record. So, this is being brought to me by NPR, but a lot of us also were literally live watching it on Senator Cory Booker's TikTok, and then it was constantly being reshared on Instagram, on Blue Sky. I'm sure it was shared on X and various other social media. But anyways, let's get into it. Senator Cory Booker's marathon speech against President Trump's economic and social policies set a new record Tuesday night as Senator Cory Booker, a Democrat, held the floor and spoke for more than 25 hours. There was a loud applause filling the chamber as Senator Booker surpassed the record set by former Senator Strom Thurmond in 1957 with 24 hours and 18 minutes. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer marked the moment by interrupting Booker with a question. Do you know you have just broken the record? And Booker said, I know now, after a lengthy ovation, but he wasn't done. I want to not quite wrap this up yet. And that was after breaking the record. So to think about someone speaking consistently, consecutively for 25 hours is wild in of itself. Um, Especially when you look at today's attention span, where your average person can't even watch a 10-minute video. So it's very, mind-boggling to actually see that take place. Um, and And I also want to mention when you look at how much US senators make, you're well paid for what you're doing. Okay. I mean, they get $174,000 a year, which breaks down to $14,500 per month. So when you look at it from that standpoint, you got paid pretty well to speak for 25 hours. Okay. I mean, if most of us could be making that type of money, we would never stop talking. Okay. So that's something to think about. Um, and uh, and yet, I'm not trying to take away the monumental historical moment or the amount of time, hard work, effort, etc. that Senator Cory Booker put in. But yeah, that's $14,500 a month. If you divide that out, that is $3,625 a week, which that's more than what a lot of working class, working poor people make in a month, and that's what they're getting paid in a week. Okay? Um, so that's just something to think about. Okay. And again, if you break that down and looking at it from a typical 40-hour work week, which we all know most people these days are working well over 40 hours a week, but the standard work week in the USA is still 40 hours a week. So if you look at it from that standpoint, and you divide $14,500 divided by 160, assuming that you're working 40 hours a week in a month, that's $90.63 an hour. Again, most people do not earn that in the USA. I mean, think about it. Our federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, and you have senators making $90.63 an hour. So, just to put that in terms, like, that's a lot of money. I mean, they're basically making, um, like, if you look at it from that standpoint, they're basically making 83 more dollars an hour than your person at the federal minimum wage rate. And if you times that $90.63 times 25, Senator Cory Booker made $2,265.63 in 25 hours. Meanwhile, again, your average working person in the USA is lucky to get that in a month. So I'm just, putting it in layman terms because, yes, we're grateful and thankful, and at the same time, you're paid fairly well. You're paid fairly well to do these things. And I know there's going to be people like, well, why are you complaining, or what is it now? And again, our tax dollars are paying for them to make this money, and they are literal public servants. It's their job to represent us in our best interests to begin with. So I kind of get tired of the praise that we're giving people for doing their jobs. Because again, you're not praising everyday working people who get up every day and do their jobs and aren't paid shit. And then keep in mind, many of us are consistently advocating for our communities and we don't get paid. On top of the fact that we have these low, stagnant wage jobs. So it does need to be highlighted, in my opinion. But nevertheless, I'm still giving credit where it's due. So, anyways, again, there's been a loud applause. Uh, Senator Booker kept talking, discussing what he repeatedly called a moral moment for America. He urged his Republican and Democratic colleagues to protect what Senator Booker said was a successful investment in agencies doing vital social and scientific work for the public, but which are targeted for deep cuts by Trump's administration. Quote, I want to go a little bit past this, Senator Booker said as he resumed his remarks, sparking laughter as he added, and quote, and then I'm going to deal with some of the biological urgencies I'm feeling. Because again, he literally did not go to the bathroom for 25 hours. Just want to throw that out there. Like, can you imagine holding your urine, or your number two, whatever it is, for 25 hours? So again, I mean, I am recognizing the hard work and effort that Senator Cory Booker put into this. Not trying to take away from it. But again, you have people working at Amazon who can't go to the bathroom. So, and they're not making $90 an hour. Okay. Anyways, so uh, Booker's speech measured a few minutes over 25 hours, eclipsing Thurman's stand against the Civil Rights Act of 1957 that lasted 24 hours and 18 minutes, according to the Senate Historical Office. In this country, it also surpassed Senator Ted Cruz's speech against Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, in 2013, which lasted 21 hours and 19 minutes. During his mark, the New Jersey Democrat read aloud from messages sent by Americans, stressing the pain that they are expressing over the economic challenges and their fears that Medicaid and other key programs will face debilitating budget cuts. Senator Booker called for Republicans who don't agree with Trump's economic plans to resist them, citing positions by conservative groups such as the Cato Institute and the Manhattan Institute. He spoke of reading from the Federalist Papers, urging his Senate colleagues to fulfill their role in the system of checks and balances and over executive provide oversight over executive power. Quote, this is going to define the character of our country for years and years to come, uh, Cory Booker said. Uh, Senator Booker also spoke about two figures who were on opposite sides during the civil rights era, Strom Thurmond and the late Georgia Congressman John Lewis, who urged people to insist on justice by stirring up good trouble. And that's what late Georgia Congressman John Lewis recommended and encouraged. If you remember 2020, uh, before he passed away. Quote, there's a room here in the Senate named after Strom Thurmond, Cory Booker said moments before setting the new record. Quote, to hate him, and this is what Senator Cory Booker said, quote, to hate him is wrong, and maybe my ego got too caught up. That if I stood here, just maybe, I could break this record, he said of Thurmond. Quote, the man who tried to stop the rights upon which I stand. I'm not here, though, because of his speech. I'm here despite his speech. I'm here because, as powerful as he was, the people were more powerful. Senator Booker then relayed a story about Congressman John Lewis, told him when the two were in Georgia about meeting a man who years ago had beaten him up when Congressman Lewis was an activist protesting segregation and racial discrimination. Quote, decades later, he was a congressman, Booker said of Lewis. Quote, that man brought his grandson with him to ask for forgiveness from John Lewis. Quote, what did you do? Booker recalled asking. Quote, and a good Christian man, a man of faith, simply said, quote, every one of us needs mercy. Every one of us needs redemption. I forgave him. I hugged him. We wept, and I looked at the boy. This nation needs you too. So you can finish reading, different articles on this. Um, but I'm going to just give my 2 cents, 3 cents, what have you, on it. It has that feel good speech. Um, is it performative? Yes, I mean, when you look at Senate and Congress, that's basically what it is. You're having people act on the behalf of their constituents, you, me, our communities, whom we've elected to represent us, who our tax dollars pay to represent us. And when you look at a lot of the budget cuts that are being enacted under Trump's administration, it will be catastrophic for a lot of people in the country and around the world. So, on one hand, I'm very grateful that he spoke and he basically gave a history lesson for 25 hours, basically, and then expressed what social service programs are getting cut and slashed and defunded, and how that's going to impact everyday Americans, as well as how it's going to impact the countries surrounding us and around the world. So, it definitely is something to be commended. And yet, I personally am not big on the forgiving people who are actively harming you. As far as I'm concerned, forgiveness is earned, not given. Okay, if like you haven't done anything to show that you are sorry, you're not making any amendments, and yet you think people are supposed to just give you forgiveness. Um, and then two, it's kind of a slap in the face to people who are actively being persecuted because of their identity. Um, because think about it. You're expecting people who families are being ripped to shreds with ice to be forgiving the very people that are causing them to be ripped to shreds. You're asking people in the LGBTQIA plus community, in particular the trans community, to also be forgiving to people who don't want them to exist. Doesn't really, for me personally, doesn't really fly. Not to mention, this is the same senator that is backed by APAC. So, and if you don't know anything about APAC, you know me. I'm gonna give it to you all because I don't, what am I gonna sit up here and lie to you about? APAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. It is a pro-Israel lobbying group that advocates its policies to the legislative and executive branches of the U.S., one of several pro-Israel lobbying organizations in the country. It has been called one of the most powerful lobbying groups. And again, that lobbying group, APAC, is funding people like Senator Cory Booker. So then you look at people whose families have been murdered and killed in Palestine, and you're expecting them to forgive people that are actively murdering and slaughtering their families. And that's what I mean by everything sounds great on paper, but in reality, real people are dying, real people have been killed, real people are being denied basic human rights and freedoms. So again, it sounds good on paper, but when it is in the real world, people want to see more than a 25-hour speech. I'm just going to call a thing a thing. Not to mention our the Democratic Senator Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who is basically a spineless coward. Also, it's just like, again, we're electing people to represent our communities, our best interests, advocate for our freedoms and rights, and what have you. But then they get in office and do the exact opposite. Is causing a lot of people to pretty much lose any type of faith in our political system. And again, what are we going to do today in current times, presently, to address people's material conditions? And speeches aren't doing that. I'm just, again, um, and yet at the same time, it is a monumental historical moment. And it does take a lot of guts and gumption to speak for 25 hours straight, um, and never be able to go to the bathroom, and doing what you can to uh, prevent a bill that is going to be enacted into law that's going to crush a lot of people. So it's like there's pros and cons on both sides here. Um, so that's something. That's why I said at the beginning of the video, you can look at it from various lenses. And here on Psych Perspectives, we try to just give it to you, share some different perspectives, provide some resources and information. Um, but yeah, what we're facing in this country currently is just disastrous. I mean, I truly feel for a lot of us. Again, a lot of people are struggling to make ends meet with today's cost of living, inflation, and also with the potential tariffs that are going to be coming and people being laid off from jobs. There is the looming risk of a recession is also there. And for my millennials and Gen Zers, um, for a lot of us, we've never lived in a healthy economy for the average everyday working person. I mean, literally, for millennials and Gen Zers, when we were dealing with the Great Recession of 2008, a lot of us were in middle school, high school. And then for Gen Zers, they were literally, in elementary to middle school. So when you look at it from that standpoint, a lot of us have never seen a positive economy for everyday people. We've constantly lived in a situation where wages and salaries are low and stagnant and do not reflect the cost of living, let alone take inflation into consideration. And it's been the same thing for decades. You're talking about the recession of 2008. It is 2025. Do you all realize that in 3 more years that'll be 20 years ago? It's been 17 years. So that's what I mean by I'm 32, right? So literally more than half of my life has already been spent living in these horrible economic setups for everyday people. And it doesn't really seem like there's a lot of upward mobility. And then to see social programs like Medicaid, Medicare, um, Social Security, disability, the Veteran Affairs, just various programs being cut that are designed to be a form of a safety net for everyday working class people, working people, is very scary, and it's not reassuring. Not to mention, we've already paid taxes for these programs. Again, this is what I'm always telling people. When you look at your pay stubs, or if you don't get like a physical copy of your pay stub and you check online, look at your pay stubs. You've already paid state, federal taxes. You've already paid for Social Security. You've already paid for Medicaid, Medicare. So it's just crazy to see that now we're potentially not going to have those when we've already paid to have those programs with our tax dollars. Um, so yeah, but yeah, this is the world that we are living in. And will things get better? Will things get worse? Probably. Um, and at this point, I'm just like, march, rally, protest, boycott, filibuster, do whatever tools that you have access to advocate for yourself, for your families, for your communities. Because We don't really have a lot of options outside of that. And and I also still recognize what Senator Cory Booker did is still a historical feat, and I give credit where it's due. And I also recognize on the other side, people are still suffering, and there's an uphill battle. So that's been my 2 3 cents on it. Information, as always, is in the description box below. Feel free to share your resources and information as well. And as always, I strongly recommend that you consider critical thinking. Doing research, fact checking. We need it in this day and age a lot. And I'm out.